Good news for the 49ers. Big enough for us to go live again here from Cabo. Sunset behind us, and San Francisco has moved up from number 7 in the NFC playoff positioning order, which is the final spot, to number 6 without even playing on the bye week. That is because the Chicago Bears just lost to the Green Bay Packers. So the 49ers have passed the Bears, who entered this weekend as the number 1 seed, but the 49ers have now passed the Bears to move up into number 6. I have visual proof for you right here. The Bears are now number 7. This is what it looks like exiting this weekend. Now, Philadelphia still has to play tomorrow against the Chargers in the NFC. Tonight's game for Sunday Night Football is a AFC matchup between Kansas City and the Houston Texans. So nothing on the NFC is going to change any further tonight. Tomorrow, if the Eagles lose, they're going to drop to 8-5, but they'll still be the NFC East leader. So they will still remain in that number 3 spot. But as you can tell, the 49ers are in the 6th seed. If the playoffs started today, the 49ers would head to Philadelphia for a wild card game. Now, a lot of other wild stuff is happening around the league, and we're going to talk all about it today. But one thing that we should mention is that the New Orleans Saints beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers today, which means that the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now tied at 7-6 atop the NFC South. Now, Tampa Bay has the tiebreaker right now over Carolina. But given the direction of the Bucs, which has not been good, they've slid ever since they beat the 49ers in that Week 6 game. If the Panthers end up beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and if the 49ers climb to that 5 seed, which is very possible because they play the Seattle Seahawks in Week 18, there's still a lot to be written on that front. The 49ers would be 5 and Carolina could be 4, and that would set up a first-round NFC playoff matchup between the 49ers and the Panthers in Charlotte. So Christian McCaffrey could go back to his old stomping grounds. Now, that's all speculation at this point. All we can tell you firmly is that the 49ers are currently in that number 6 seed, and the pathway forward for them became easier today by virtue of the fact that Daniel Jones, the Colts quarterback, tore his Achilles. That is now confirmed, which means that the Colts will go to either Riley Leonard, who filled in today, not well, in a loss to Jacksonville, or Anthony Richardson, who's currently on injured reserve with a broken orbital bone. That's like your eye socket bone. The Colts will be on a backup quarterback when they face the 49ers in 2 weeks on December 22nd in Indianapolis. So basically, the toughest game for San Francisco appeared, at least for the end of this year. I know Seattle's in the next calendar year. That's on January 4th. But it appeared that the toughest game for the 49ers over the rest of this December would be the Colts game. And it appeared that they were going to be underdogs for that Colts game on December 22nd. Now I can almost assure that the 49ers will be favored. The 49ers will likely beat the Titans, who got their second win today over the Cleveland Browns. Not much to say about that strength of victory for Tennessee. But the 49ers will be 10-4. They're going to head into Indianapolis. That's a sliding Colts team. And we now know that Indianapolis will no longer have their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones. So stuff changing very, very quickly, stuff changing rapidly here in the NFL. Now, what we just saw between the Bears and the Packers, fascinating on more than just that level. The Bears are coming to Levi's Stadium on December 28th after the 49ers play the Colts. That's going to be a Sunday night football game. That game will no longer be for the 1 seed in the NFC, at least between 2 teams who both have a chance at the 1 seed, because Chicago has dropped to 9-4. Unless a bunch of teams lose that we don't expect to lose next week, that's probably off the table. There had been a chance that if Chicago had won this weekend and went to, what would it be, 10-3, and if the 49ers won next weekend and then beat the Indianapolis Colts, that would have moved the 49ers to 11-4. It could have been an 11-3 against an 11-4. The 49ers against the Bears at 11-3. But the Bears lost, so that's no longer going to happen. San Francisco now in the 6, Chicago in the 7. It's still 3 weeks away, right? December 28th. So it's hard to project exactly what the stakes of that game will be. But we did just watch the Bears lose because of their, for lack of a better term, their Achilles heel. I know that Daniel Jones just tore his Achilles, but the figurative Achilles of the Bears has been their pass game. And I thought Caleb Williams did some nice stuff out of the pocket on the drive where he was attempting to tie it late. But that interception on 4th and 1, especially given the run game that Chicago has, I know that they were trying to pull a fast one on Green Bay, and they thought that might be their chance to equalize the game with a touchdown. That just wasn't it from Caleb Williams. He lofted a pass that was intercepted that ended the game. And it reminded me that just a few days ago, Ben Johnson, Chicago's head coach, literally said, "We are winning in spite of our pass game, not because of it." Caleb Williams has the worst completion percentage in the entire NFL. Look, we can even go to the box score of this game and see how he did today. I thought the stretches that I was able to watch here in Cabo were better than some of the stretches of Caleb Williams that I had seen earlier this year. But as you can tell, this still was not pretty. 19 of 35, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, but that one interception. And there's going to be a time, and today was that time, when push comes to shove, and the Bears are going to not be able to run the way that they did in Philadelphia, where they controlled game flow on Black Friday. They're going to have to actually pass the football in situations where the defense is expecting pass to have success. And if they can't count on Caleb Williams, and today he obviously lost the game there with an interception, that team's ceiling is going to be limited. And that's why Ben Johnson said what he did to the media this week. He said, "We are winning in spite of our pass game, not because of it." It's probably the most blunt characterization of our quarterback is not very good that I've ever heard from an NFL head coach, especially from a head coach of a team that at the time was 9-3. When the Bears come to Levi's on December 28th, the 49ers are going to have a very, very firm advantage at quarterback. Brock Purdy's a lot better than Caleb Williams. But the Bears still have Ben Johnson and a hell of a rushing attack, a hell of an offensive line. I mean, they nearly rushed for 300 yards against the Philadelphia Eagles. They will have edges on paper against the 49ers defense that might be finding its stride right now, but obviously doesn't have Nick Bosa or Fred Warner. I joked on Twitter, and maybe it's not a joke, this could be the chess match of the century, because you've got Ben Johnson calling offensive plays for Chicago, Kyle Shanahan calling offensive plays for the 49ers. But the defensive coordinators in this game also really good. Robert Saleh for San Francisco, Dennis Allen for the Bears. And today, Chicago was trying to run a lot of creative run action, and some of it worked, and it kept them in that game against Green Bay. That same creativity is going to be on display in the Ben Johnson versus Robert Saleh matchup 3 weeks from now on Sunday Night Football. Dennis Allen against Kyle Shanahan is a good matchup as well. Kyle has won the most recent battles between those two, but Dennis has been around this league for a while as a good defensive coordinator. And I think, my joke on Twitter was that I was going deep into the chess vernacular. I said that it was going to be the Bobby Fischer, Donald Byrne showdown. That is commonly considered the greatest chess match in the history of chess matches. I believe that Bobby Fischer, the greatest chess player ever, was only 13 years old at the time. So you don't have an extremely young coach in Shanahan, Ben Johnson, but you're going to have a hell of a matchup between two of the great offensive minds in football, and they're going to be working against Robert Saleh and Dennis Allen, respectively. So let's take a look at the full gamut here of what happened while the 49ers were on their bye this Saturday. I could pop open the schedule. I can get that up on the screen for you. Here we go. Texans, Chiefs, Eagles, Chargers still yet to happen. We talked about Lions and Cowboys on Thursday night. That keeps the Lions in the playoff race. They're a game behind the 49ers. I'll open the standings in just a little bit. But the Cowboys essentially eliminated. I know they've still got a little bit of a chance to make it, but that was a damaging loss for Dallas. And it's Detroit who is trying to catch the 49ers and I guess the Bears trying to catch one of those teams for the 7th seed. The 49ers got no help today from two of the bird teams. I know the Seahawks are a bird team as well, but the 49ers needed the Falcons, the birds from Atlanta. They needed them to put up a better fight against the Seahawks. They didn't. 37-9 Seattle. So Seattle stays ahead of the 49ers. There was a chance the 49ers could jump up to number 5 or even number 2 if they saw both the Seahawks and the Rams lose. Neither of those two teams lost, though, because if we scroll down here, the Cardinals just got whipped 45-17 by the Rams in the desert. Nothing surprising there. Still disappointing for the 49ers that they didn't get any extra help. So they move up only to number 6, not any higher than that. The Steelers beat the Ravens. The Steelers are in first place in that AFC North. The Bills beat the Bengals, 2 interceptions on 2 consecutive plays for Joe Burrow. So, I had a take a couple weeks ago after the 49ers played the Panthers. And I said, Brock Purdy's not the only quarterback in the NFL that throws interceptions. I said that all NFL quarterbacks throw interceptions. And for whatever reason, that take was controversial. I don't think it should be all that controversial anymore now that people have seen Matthew Stafford throw a couple picks last week. And today you saw Joe Burrow throw picks on 2 straight plays, leading directly to the Bengals' loss to the Buffalo Bills. So that eliminates Cincinnati. I don't know if mathematically it does, but for all intents and purposes, the Bengals are done. The Bills move to 9-4, which is the same record as the 49ers. Then there were Titans-Browns. This game is generating more stupid takes than any game has ever generated, especially any game between two teams with a combined 5 wins. There are people trying to dunk on other people on the internet because this game has somehow applied confirmation bias in their heads that Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback. Shedeur Sanders, who was ranked 45 out of 45 qualifying quarterbacks in efficiency entering this game, so he had proven absolutely nothing entering this game. He just beat he lost. Sorry, this is how dumb some of these takes are. They've scrambled my brain. He just lost to a previously 1-win team. The Titans were 1-11. Beating the Tennessee Titans means absolutely nothing in this league. But the main takeaway is that anybody trying to make a grand statement on either Cam Ward, who's the quarterback of Tennessee, or Shedeur Sanders, who's starting for the Browns, anybody trying to make a grand statement off of a game between the 3-9 Cleveland Browns and the 1-11 Tennessee Titans needs to reevaluate the lens through which they watch the game. Sometimes it's just 2 bad teams playing a low-quality game. It's not anything more than that. And for as many yards as Shedeur Sanders passed for today, he also made a terrible interception. He also wasn't good on a 2-point conversion play to the point where his coach didn't even trust him on a late 2-point conversion. Kevin Stefanski called some kind of wildcat play that got blown up. Didn't work at all at the end of the game. So that's why it was 31-29. The Titans beat the Browns. The only reason I find this result remotely interesting, it's not because of all this stupid online talk and discourse about a pair of rookie quarterbacks who have not played well yet this year. That's not why I care. That's why a lot of people seem to be thumping their chests after this one. I care because the 49ers are going to play the Titans next week, and Tennessee is now going to be coming off of a win. The 49ers are heavy favorites in this game. We'll see if the line has moved at all for next week. It was 12.5 for San Francisco coming off their bye week, and it's not even posted yet. So maybe Mike can let me know if he sees an updated line. But they're still going to be 2 touchdown favorites over Tennessee. The fact that the Titans do have a win under their belts and are feeling a little bit better about themselves entering San Francisco or entering Santa Clara and Levi's Stadium makes it a tad more interesting for me. But I still don't think that this game next week is going to be particularly close between the 49ers and Tennessee. Jacksonville beats Indianapolis 36-19. That game, you look at how badly things have gone for the Colts ever since the trade deadline. I still don't know why they traded 2 first-round picks for a cornerback in Sauce Gardner, but they did that, and obviously their defense is not playing up to the standard that you'd expect it to. They were an offense-driven team. I mean, if you look at the team tier chart entering this weekend, the Colts way over here, one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the league, but that's about to take a severe hit with the loss of Daniel Jones to an Achilles injury. I think Indianapolis is going to be in the, assuming they stay above average offensively, this could sink them all the way down to Tampa Bay levels. They could be at Tampa Bay, Atlanta levels, and the 49ers obviously are going to be much better than where they are on this team tier chart because Brock Purdy is back and the defense is getting better. We consider the 49ers to be a team at worst near where Detroit might be right now, maybe with a worse offense, so maybe we're near where Kansas City is, depending on how much you believe in Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey in the offense. But the 49ers may essentially trade places with Indianapolis on the team's strength scale based on the injury today. Daniel Jones tearing his Achilles. Colts lose the quarterback who has helmed the number 1 offensive ranking thus far, but it's not going to stay that way for long. All right, back to our scoreboard. 36-19. The Jags, by the way, who beat the 49ers back in that week 4 game, they are now in first place, sole possession in the AFC South at 9-4. These seasons are marathons. They are not sprints. Speaking of marathons, those of you who missed the show a little bit earlier, congratulations to my dad, Alan Lombardi, who was requalified for the Boston Marathon. He just ran the Sacramento Marathon in 4 hours and 2 seconds. So congratulations to Alan, gets the job done. He's going to be competing in Boston for the second time in 2 years, in 2027, in that 70-year-old division. So awesome. That was a marathon. It wasn't a sprint. He got the job done. The NFL season is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Let's head back to the scoreboard. The Vikings, wow, this is a game I was not paying attention to, and I still don't care about, but I look at that and I see 31-0. Former 49ers executive against former 49ers executive, GMs of both the Vikings and the Commanders, but definitely not a compelling game. 31-0 Minnesota. Also not compelling, the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel, 31-10 over the Jets. This is the game I was talking about. The Saints, 24-20 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So now you've got that NFC South tied between Tampa Bay and Carolina that could affect who the 49ers play in the playoffs, but still a lot to be determined. The Broncos, to nobody's surprise, beat the Raiders. The Rams did not help the 49ers at all. Neither did the Cardinals, 45-17 LA. And then the game that we were just talking about, the Packers over the Bears, 28-21. Next week, you've got the Lions visiting SoFi Stadium. The 49ers, if we want to go back to the standings here, control their own destiny as far as passing everyone in the NFC except for the Rams. So, look, the 49ers are at number 6. Seattle's at 5, but the 49ers play Seattle. So if the 49ers win out, including a victory over the Seahawks in Week 18, they would pass the Seahawks. If the 49ers win out, they will be ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles because they have a better conference record than the Eagles. If the 49ers win out the rest of the way, I guess they would need Green Bay to lose once more, actually, because Green Bay has a tie, so they have a higher winning percentage than the 49ers. So the 49ers don't control the destiny as far as Green Bay and the Rams. They need those teams to lose at least once more if they win out, if the 49ers win out, to be able to usurp their position and head toward the NFC's number 1 seed. I think that it will make your head hurt less if you just treat this on a week-by-week basis and you say, okay, well, who could the Rams lose to? Who could the Packers lose to? Let's open up the Rams schedule for the rest of this season. Look, they're turning on the lights behind me here in Cabo. This is nice. You can see that there's lights here. My collar popped up. I needed to fix my collar before I started this show. You guys should have let me know. All right, that looks a lot better. That wasn't on purpose, the half pop collar. I was in a rush. I come up from the pool. We got to do a live. This is why you need to subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000. We're working even on bi-week vacation to cover what needs to be covered. And we're at 95,394. So make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Did a live after the morning games, do a live after the evening games. Now we're looking at the Rams schedule. Where do the Rams potentially have a loss to allow the 49ers to have a chance of passing them? They play against the Lions this next week on Sunday. That's at SoFi. Then they play at the Seahawks. I don't count on the Falcons or the Cardinals to help the 49ers out in beating the Rams over week 17 and 18. So if the Rams are going to lose, I think it's going to have to happen either next Sunday or 4 days after that on Thursday when the Rams head to Seattle. How about the Packers? Let's see where Green Bay is as far as schedule moving forward the rest of this season. I've got the Green Bay schedule up. Here we go. So the Packers, look, they're at the Broncos next week. Then they're at the Bears. They play the Bears 2 times in 3 weeks. Then versus the Ravens, then at Minnesota. You know, I know Minnesota just won 31-0, but I don't think they're going to win 31-0 against Green Bay on January 4th. So it's the ferocious Denver defense. It's a rematch against Chicago, but on the road. And then it's a trip to face Lamar and the Ravens on December 27th. I think there's a good chance that the Green Bay loses at least one of those games. Those are the only 2 teams that the 49ers actually technically need to lose, but that's only assuming the 49ers run the table to close this season. And running the table for San Francisco obviously won't be easy, but it got easier today with the injury to Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts. So the 49ers, they're favored big time over the Tennessee Titans next week. They'll be favored over the Colts. I think the 49ers should be favored over the Bears, because they're going to have the quarterback advantage and they're going to have the home field advantage. And, you know, the Bears, it's an interesting team. They're very, very dependent on takeaways. They entered this game leading the NFL with 26 takeaways. It's a bend but don't break defense in that way, similar to San Francisco's. I think you've got to credit Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator. He's done a lot of the same stuff that Robert Saleh has done this year in as far as maximizing the talent that he has to work with. So all hats off to Dennis Allen, but the Bears have limitations as a football team. You saw them today. They start at the quarterback position, and if you can take that run game out of it, then you're going to have the upper hand. And I think that the 49ers will be able to move the ball against Chicago. So my prediction is that the 49ers are favored over the Bears on December 28th. And then, of course, you've got the game against the Seattle Seahawks. That might be the only one in which the 49ers aren't favored, but it's so hard to project right now. Say that San Francisco holds serve and wins against Tennessee coming out of the bye. That's going to move them to 10-4. Say that they hold serve and then they beat the Colts on their backup quarterback and move to 11-4. Say that they further hold serve and beat the Bears to move to 12-4. If the 49ers are 12-4 entering that final game against the Seattle Seahawks, assuming everybody stays healthy on both sides, I don't want to predict injuries to anybody, even on the Seattle side. Assuming everybody stays healthy, who would be favored? San Francisco or Seattle? To help answer the question, we could look at the team tier chart. The 49ers were favored over the Seahawks week 1, but that's back when the 49ers had Bosa and Fred Warner. Seattle is a tier ahead of San Francisco, according to this. But remember that the 49ers, this includes all the time with Mac Jones. This includes the time with the defense not playing the way it's playing right now. I think it's going to be proper ahead of that game to split this up into different portions of the season. And if we only consider the Purdy stretch, and it's going to be, 6 games long at that point, the 49ers may be like up over here. Like they may be in this kind of tier, and Seattle will probably still be in the elite defense, solid offense tier, but the 49ers might be better than the Seahawks. They might be favored, especially with the home field for that Week 18 game. And maybe that Week 18 game is for the 1 seed. That's how compelling the end of this season is lining up to be. So the 49ers get to move up a spot despite not playing a game. More good news for them is that nobody got hurt this weekend because it was their bye week. And, all we had to do was sit back and analyze. That's what I did up on the San Francisco Standard. This article is there now. Mike, can you take the link to this article and put it up in the description? It's on my Twitter. Mike is not in Cabo right now, so it's gotten dark. We've gotten a sunset show in. They got the floodlights on the buildings. But we have our big-time 49ers analysis. I took a look at the offense. And Purdy and Jones, you can see where they are. But Purdy, I'm going to open up this chart in a little bit. Brock Purdy, far and away the hardest quarterback to sack in the entire NFL. That's at the very basis of the 49ers' goal to move as far to the right here on this team tier chart as possible. But we got more. We have the breakdown of the receiving position. Too much red for the 49ers to be happy right now. They need to get above the league median in yards per route run. I think this season offensively, and maybe the season as a whole, hinges on Ricky Pearsall, especially if Brandon Ayuk is not going to be coming back. A lot of it has hinged on George Kittle, but he already is back. I mean, look at where the 49ers run game is now versus where it was without George Kittle. They rank number 27 and number 23 in these two important run metrics, weeks 1 to 6 without George. Ever since he's returned, top 8 and top 5 in EPA and success rate against the run. So the bedrock of what Shanahan wants to do is back. Now, though, the 49ers need to improve this. The yards per route run. Back in 2023, I mentioned this on the show earlier, they had 2 guys over 2 yards per route run. They had Ayuk and Samuel at the wide receiver position. They no longer have a single receiver scoring in the blue above the league median. Jennings is 1.38. The median's 1.77. Ricky Pearsall's 1.53. Ricky was where Ayuk and where Deebo Samuel were, same ballpark weeks 1 to 4, but coming off the knee injury, he's not been nearly as productive. And the 49ers just need to generate more space on the outside if they want this offense to get the job done more easily. The 49ers are straining right now. It is just tough sledding for the 49ers. Thankfully, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the game in Brock Purdy. If you don't believe me, you should probably take a look at this graphic right here. On the x-axis, you've got pressure percentage faced. On the y-axis, you have pressure to sack ratio. The lower the pressure to sack ratio or the higher the quarterback is on this chart means that he's better at avoiding sacks. Brock Purdy has been the best quarterback in the entire league at avoiding sacks. And that's really good because he's facing an above average pressure rate. He's facing pressure nearly 25% of the time, but it's also really good for San Francisco because he does not have a lot of dynamicism at the receiver position. Pearsall's been out for most of the year. Ayuk has been out all of the year. Ayuk not expected back for the 49ers. Jennings has been hurt for much of the year with 6 broken ribs. They got Kendrick Bourne off the street. I mean, the leader in yards per route run for the 49ers is a running back in Christian McCaffrey, who's just having to will his way through sheer volume to the top spot of yards per route run. But again, they rank number 24 in average separation at the time of catch or incompletion. The 49ers need to help Brock Purdy much, much more. And I think Pearsall is the one hinge point that can allow them to make this look a little bit more like 2023. Because right now you're too reliant on Christian McCaffrey and on George Kittle, especially since both of those guys are also responsible for the run game's surge back up near the top 5. So there's one missing piece. The missing piece certainly, there's my dad's marathon time. Congratulations to him again. But the missing piece certainly isn't Purdy. He's one of the best in the game. The missing piece certainly isn't George Kittle. He has fueled this. The missing piece certainly isn't Christian McCaffrey. He's on top of this list in terms of receiving efficiency. So is George Kittle. The missing piece needs to come from the wideout position. And if Brandon Ayuk is not walking back through that door, then I look at Ricky Pearsall as the obvious candidate for the 49ers. They've already climbed up to number 6 in NFC playoff positioning. Today, they were able to finish that climb to number 6 without even having to play. But how is San Francisco going to move even further up? Well, it's about dragging this to the right, dragging it up. Robert Saleh doing a lot of the job already. Brock Purdy doing a lot of the job already. But I think Ricky Pearsall represents where the 49ers have to pick up the slack to move it to that very next level. So if you enjoy this type of really deep analysis, this is up on the San Francisco Standard. Here's the offensive line, by the way. They've actually been playing decently well for the 49ers this year. We can get into that later, but this is the most in-depth look at 49ers performance that you'll find. And Mike is going to put that link up in the description. Mike, can you send me the link, or maybe we could put it up in the chat section too, but description would be nice. Tonight, we've got the Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now this is compelling because this might be the end of the Chiefs this year. They're 6-6. And it's funny because Kansas City, when we open our team tier chart, you would think that they're way up here. They're what, first or second tier, basically. You would think that Kansas City would be a shoo-in for the playoffs. But this is the opposite of what we saw last year when they weren't that good, when they were kind of over here where the Eagles were, but they were hardly losing all season. They were winning a bunch of close games. This year, the Chiefs are losing some of these close games. They're not delivering in the clutch the way that they did in the past. And because of that, they are flirting with disaster. Kansas City enters this game as the 9 seed. Houston is the 8 seed. So it's the Texans and the Chiefs fighting it out. Indianapolis is probably on its way to relinquishing that final spot, the 7th spot. It's not looking pretty at all for the Colts, especially since they've lost their quarterback. So Houston and Kansas City can both position themselves to try to take that final spot, but the Chiefs absolutely have to win this game tonight. It is in Kansas City. It's one of the best defenses in the entire league. You see the Texans up here. They are the best in terms of EPA against one of the best offenses in the entire league, the Kansas City Chiefs over here on the right. And guess what? Here in Cabo, we get to watch it in the movie theater. At the resort, they've got a movie theater, and it's dark now, so we're not going to miss any sunshine time. We get to watch the Chiefs and the Texans go at it. CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, but it's mainly the Texans defense against the Chiefs offense. And then we'll see if the slightly below average Texans offense can take it to the slightly below average Chiefs defense. But the marquee matchup is on the other side of the ball. The line in this game, I would assume Kansas City's favored. They are. They're favored by 5 points. So if Kansas City wins, they move to 7-6. Houston is 7-6. Kansas City head-to-head tiebreaker over Houston. And both they would then be a game behind Indianapolis. And then it's very possible that the Texans and the Chiefs are both cheering very hard for the 49ers when the 49ers play the Colts in a couple weeks in Indianapolis. So this league, man, fascinating stuff. I'm ready to answer some of your questions. I'm just now getting to the question. So if you've asked the question earlier, I probably didn't see it. Here's a question. Thank you for the super tip. So if the Rams lose to the Lions and the Hawks lose at least 2 games, and the 49ers win theirs, yeah, so all the 49ers need to win the division if they win out. If the 49ers win out, all they need is one more Rams loss. Think of it as simply as that. One more Rams loss, 49ers win out, 49ers win the NFC West. If the Rams lose twice, then you're looking at the Rams at 5 losses, which would be 12 wins at most for the Rams. So that would be 12-5 if they lose twice. If the Seahawks lose at least 2 games, then you are looking at also 12-5 being the best for the Seahawks. And the 49ers currently are 9-4. So the 49ers could actually lose one more game and be fine as long as they don't lose to the Seahawks. Because the 49ers' great superpower right now is their NFC record. They've been very, very good in the division this year. We know that. They've only lost to the Rams in the division. But look at the conference record. 49ers are 8-2. The Rams are 5-3. The Seahawks are 6-3. So as long as the 49ers hold that conference record tiebreaker, good things are going to happen for them in the event of a crowd, and there currently is a crowd. I mean, isn't it wild that both the 6 and the 7 seed in the NFC right now, the 49ers and the Bears, both have 9 wins? I mean, the only weak link here is the NFC South leader, and that's Tampa Bay. They may get unseated by Carolina, who's also 7-6, but the Bucs currently hold the tiebreaker advantage. Scrolling down on more questions. Just concentrate on the Titans. Yep. I mean, that's next for the 49ers. I mean, if you want me to concentrate on the Titans, I'm happy to. It's just not that compelling of a matchup because the 49ers are playing, I think, the worst team in the NFL. Now, the worst team in the NFL did just beat the Browns, but the Browns are another one of the worst teams in the NFL. The fact that people are trying to make proclamations about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward is an absolute joke because this team just played this team. The only other team that's as inferior as both of those two teams who are beating each other is the Raiders. Right. I mean, you're just talking about bottom feeders in the NFL. There's nothing you can substantively learn in a game between two of those teams. And the 49ers get to play one of them next week at home, coming off a bye. The Titans are bad offensively. They're bad defensively. And they're about 5 tiers below the 49ers. Yes, they will take the Titans seriously, but I also have to analyze things seriously. And if I'm going to, I'm not going to lie to you guys. The Titans are terrible. If the 49ers lose next week, it will be the worst loss of the Shanahan era. Like, you can't lose this game if you're San Francisco. The Titans are not good. Yes, they might have beaten the Browns, but the Browns are also not good. The 49ers are coming off a bye. They'll be at home. The 49ers essentially control their own destiny. I know they don't quite for the number 1 seed, but for the playoffs, they definitely do. They need to win this game against Tampa Bay. I mean, look where against Tennessee. Look where Tennessee is. Look where the 49ers are. There's a marked gap in between these two teams. Sorry to step out of topic, but do you think the Niners will draft heavily for O-linemen in the upcoming draft? I'm not so sure. What the 49ers are doing at offensive line right now is working. People are always up in arms about the offensive line, but the percentile scores of the O-line have been good. I mean, their tackles are above average in both run and pass blocking. The guard position, Dominic Pooney has scored well. I mean, he's above the 50th percentile, which is above average in both pass and run blocking, even though he started slow because of the knee injury. Unfortunately, Ben Barch just got hurt for the 49ers, and he's probably done for the season. So the one question is left guard. Spencer Burford and Connor Colby. Burford actually has scored worse than Colby in terms of run blocking grade, but the 49ers definitely like Burford better. I think they trust him more next to Trent Williams. I think there's more cohesion between Burford and Trent Williams. The good news for the 49ers is even though there is an issue at left guard, right guard is stabilized with Pooney getting healthier. I think Brendel is actually stabilized too. He's been a good run blocker for the 49ers, and no knee tendonitis has helped. But look at this. The 49ers are the best quarterback in the league at avoiding sacks in Brock Purdy. So if there's going to be a hole on your offensive line, if there's going to be a question mark up front, have the quarterback at the very top of pressure to sack ratio. And that will help big time. And that's where the 49ers are right now. Yes, Chris Furster does deserve some credit. 49ers offensive line playing a lot better than the media and social media have thought that they would play over the course of this year. This is why I told everybody to calm down, trust the process, trust the data, reserve your judgments for when you actually have something to judge. And this is a look at that 49ers offensive line. Really turning into a team that's run blocking better than its pass blocking, which it seems to be the status quo for the Kyle Shanahan era. But again, something that's totally fine when your quarterback is the very top of the graph here. Brock Purdy leads the league in pressure to sack ratio. Yeah, I don't understand why people are talking the draft when the season is not yet isn't yet over, especially with the 49ers at 9-4 and moving up in playoff seeding. I don't blame any commenters. I don't know why people make shows about the draft nobody cares right now. People care about the standings. People care about where the 49ers are in terms of playoff positioning. And this is where they are. So that's why I'm making the show about that. The Barch injury does hurt for sure. That's tough. We got people talking about the Barch injury in the comments section. Here it is. I just lost the comment, actually. Sorry, I was going to put it up on the screen. Too much happening right now. Eddie Pinheiro should be back next week for the 49ers. And you know what's really exciting for San Francisco entering these final 4 weeks is that, you've got Eric Kendricks, who might be grabbing a starting job at linebacker to help pick up some slack. And then we could talk about Fred Warner's potential return further down the line. But B, we'll see at practice tomorrow, but Yetur Gross-Matos might be back. And that was the 49ers' best interior pass rusher entering this season. I would be really, really excited to see Yetur back out there. I think that's what could move the 49ers defense further up. Remember, it's up and to the right. Purdy can move this offense to the right. So can Ricky Pearsall. He's a hinge point. Move him to where the Chiefs are. And then Yetur Gross-Matos, Robert Saleh, greater experience, Eric Kendricks. Those guys can move the 49ers up. Who knows? Maybe this team is in the Bills, Colts, and then the Colts are going to drop Packers territory. We just saw Green Bay beat Chicago. If you're in this spot, in this area, and the 49ers have been headed in that direction, you have just as good of a shot as anybody to win a Super Bowl. And guess what? The Super Bowl's in the Bay Area this year. Got to get back to the Bay Area. Well, we'll do one more thing from Cabo. At least one more video from Cabo, right? But you guys watch the sunset from with me here in Cabo. That's great. 49ers move up to number 6. Good news on their bye week. Why don't you hit that subscribe button right now? We'll talk to you very soon.